Today I'm going to talk about feelings. We talked about this a little bit in the past, the last week's episode, but I really wanted to hone in on the difference between feelings and exactly who we are, our identity, and how those play on each other, how those impact each other, how those don't need to be impacting each other. Um, Ultimately, this is coming from a place where right now, currently, I'm going through a phase in life where a lot of the things that I'm supposed to be having faith for, I see no results. Um, there's a lot of things that God has told me is going to happen this year, but right now I don't see that those things are going to be happening because from what I see, it makes me think certain things, and those things that I think makes me feel certain ways. And then because I feel those certain ways, they ultimately dictate my actions. So, um, I've come to the realization that in my life, many of the things I've done, majority of the things that I've done, the actions, um, is because of a feeling, right? I've done things in order to feel a certain way. Yeah. And I think that we don't realize how toxic that is. I mean, it doesn't sound like anything's wrong with that. I mean, you do certain things to feel happy, you do certain things to not feel sad. But let me put a little twist on that, right? I would chase after things that would make me feel significant, and I would refrain from trying things because I'd be scared to fail. And when I fail, it would make me feel insignificant. But I was always chasing after a feeling. The goal was to feel like I was something, to feel like I was significant. Whether it was to chase an award, to chase the praise, to chase the accolades, to chase the standards, the worldly standards, the measurements that society puts on us, it was to feel like I was significant. Because ultimately, remember, I believe that God created me the way he created me. He has ordained me, has sanctified me before I was born. So I believe that my identity is this fixed thing right here, right? A great, beautiful, fixed thing. But that doesn't mean that you feel like that all the time, right? So although I can be Emmanuel, that doesn't mean I'm always feeling Emmanuel. So I always chased after things to make me feel like I was Emmanuel. Chase and get away from things that would possibly jeopardize this feeling and make me feel like I'm not Emmanuel, to feel like I'm not significant. Feelings can be dangerous. Chasing after them, and as innocent as it may be, it can be very dangerous because a lot of times we chase after feelings only to reaffirm who we are. But why do you need your feelings to affirm you? Because ultimately your feelings are just everywhere. For the people who are listening, I'm literally pointing everywhere like right now, and I'm going crazy. Like, they're everywhere. They can be everywhere. I mean, it's some things that you can control about your feelings, some things that you can't control about your feelings. Why should we allow something that's so wayward, and honestly things that are temporary, because feelings are temporary, they change all the time? Why are we allowing these things to dictate who we are? Feel how you want to feel, but don't ever relate it to your significance. So basically, this is Jesus explaining to his disciples a parable that he just gave to other people. And he's talking about different soils, and how there's a scenario, a parable where a sower is sowing a seed into all these different soils. And depending on how that that soil received the seed, indicated how fruitful that seed would be, how fruitful that soil would be. So he's explaining that there's a certain soil that the sower sowed the seed into the soil, right? And then the thorns came up and choked out the seed, so then the seed couldn't actually bear any fruit, right? And he says that in and of itself is analogous, is a parable for the people who receive the word of God, receive the promise of God. That word from God can be that thing that's telling you you're amazing, the thing that's telling you that your identity is secure, the thing that's telling you all this good stuff, the truthful stuff, that seed, that's the seed that God sows into your hearts, into your minds. The soil is your heart, into your minds, is into your spirit. But there are certain things that come along in life that want to choke that seed out, choke that word of God out, choke that truth out. And when we have that truth choked out of us, choked out of our mindsets, choked out of our belief system, That is when things can fall apart, and that's when we can be that's when we can lose our purpose and just not be fruitful. Everything starts off with an input, the things that we allow to influence us. Maybe it's what we hear, what we see, maybe it's our own faith, right? And that then dictates how we think, right? And then that then dictates how we feel, and then that dictates how we act. Or rather than say that input, our influences dictate how we think, they have an influence on how we think. And I will say in this list, it goes from input to think to feel to act, right? In this list, the only thing that we really have control of, because we don't always have control of the things that we hear. We don't always have control of the things that we feel. We don't always have control of the things that are set up that speak to us and want to like try and, influence us. But we do have control in what we allow in our head, what we allow ourselves to relish on, what we allow ourselves to think on. We do have control in that realm. And because we have control there, maybe we can have control of what comes after that, which is how we feel. And then maybe we can have control of what comes after that, which is our actions. So it looks like the battleground is in the mind. The mission of all of the things that happen to us in life, all of the bad things that happen to us in life, is not just to make us feel sad, but it is to make you unfruitful. Think about everything that Satan is bothering you with right now. It's not just for you to feel like, oh, this is hard. No, it's deeper than that. Satan doesn't care about your money. Satan doesn't care about your relationships. Satan wants to make you unfruitful. He somehow wants to cause that and make that relate to you now not walking in your purpose. Figure out how that links together personally for you. Figure that out. We need to learn how to not let a feeling or the fear of experiencing a certain feeling dictate our lives. And I'll explain that. Like I said, I would try and chase after things in order to feel like I was significant, or I would not try things so I wouldn't fail and feel like I was insignificant. So everything that I'm doing is to either feel something or not experience the feeling of something. That is not how we ought to live our lives. Because let's talk about what's wrong with chasing after those feelings in order to affirm ourselves. Okay, you chase after those feelings in order to affirm yourself, and you feel great, you feel happy, right? But every feeling is temporary, and you know that because you've lived life, and you realize that there are those times where everything's great, where you feel great, and those times where you feel bad. So why chase after these feelings of affirmation when they do not last? How about you know exactly who you are, and you don't have to chase after a feeling to affirm you? So it seems as though we have to find a way in order to get our feelings to conform to our identity, rather than have our identity conform to our feelings. We are eternal. Our identities are eternal. You do not get your identity to conform to something that is temporary. Don't do that. Because then you're going to follow every feeling that you have. And at the end of the day, man, that's a slippery slope. That's why you have people on the top that you may think should be feeling so great all the time, but it takes one little thing for them to not feel like that no more. And then because their identity follows their feelings, it's going to follow those low moments too. How do we get our feelings to conform to our identity as many times as possible in a day? I think that what it starts with, because remember we talked about, it starts with the influences that we see or hear, that we allow to inside of our head, right? And then it goes to our thought process, and then it goes to how we feel, then it goes to how we act. But what if we didn't walk by sight? What if we didn't walk by determine our thought process based on the things that we see, taste, and feel, and all that different stuff? And, the Bible talks about we walk by faith and not by sight. What if we only walked by faith and not by sight? So the way our mind worked was only by operating by faith. And I'll be honest with you, maybe I should back it up a little bit. Why is it so important for us to walk by faith and not by sight? What is that even supposed to mean? Um, I think that the problem is that we don't want to walk by faith. We would rather walk by sight. I want to see the results. I want to see everything in my favor because it's easy to walk by sight. It's hard to walk by faith. But why? Well, let's think about it. Faith is hard to walk by because faith is what we need. Satan would rather us walk by sight because he has influence in the physical realm. It's easy to believe what you see. It's easy to believe what you feel because Satan isn't fighting you there. Satan wants you to follow the things that you see, the things that you feel, because he has influence in that realm. So if he could influence those things, then he could potentially influence you if you're following those things. But the thing about faith is that it ignores Satan. And he doesn't like that. I'm reading this. Faith goes over his head because it takes him out of the equation, because you don't have to see anything that he could potentially influence in order for you to believe, in order for you to think a certain way. And because of that, then you don't have to worry about him to feel a certain way, then to act a certain way. Now you have autonomy over your actions. So best believe that if you're ignoring Satan when you have faith, that's where he's going to fight you.